Hello everyone, my name is Noah Raven and welcome to the Xander Zone. In today's episode, we'll be discussing 14 Theory Part 2. Yeah, we actually found more evidence for it in other FNAF media, so we are back at it again. So if you haven't seen the original 14 Theory episode or Locker Theory, go check it out as it'll give a lot of context for this episode. Now as always, before we get into the episode, let me lay it out for you so it's easier for you, the viewer, to follow. First, we'll cover the basis for the episode. This is just a fast generalization of the theory, so you understand the next sections. Next, I'll be covering the evidence for this, and you guessed it, we're splitting into 4 subsections this time around. The first one covering our main evidence, which is evidence that I feel is pretty solid with very minimal issues. This will then branch into the sub-evidence, being covered by our very special guest Sire Squawks, which will be evidence I feel makes sense, but may be a stretch, so I'm leaving it up to you, the viewer, to decide on it. The third evidence section will be covered by our very special guest, Gibby's Horror Homestead, being the speculation. It's things that we found that could mean something, but we highly doubt it, but still something to point out because you never know. It could lead to something pretty cool. Then our third special guest, Withered Circle, will get into the Pigpatch section. Yeah, he's here and he has a very interesting connection between Golden Freddy and Old Man Consequences. So you guessed it, this will be covering the evidence to connect Pigpatch to these two characters, as I could turn it into its own video. Then we will get into the next section, which is the issues with our evidence, and I will try my best to counteract the issues if I can. However, I won't be covering the speculation part here, as those are already flimsy as it is. Lastly, everyone and myself will be giving our final thoughts, as there really isn't a story to this theory. Then of course, the outro, which will be giving cool announcements and some clarification on 14 Theory. Now as always, if you enjoy this episode, please do hit that like, subscribe button, as we have a goal of 3,000 subs by the end of the month. While you're at it, comment down below your thoughts, theories, disagreements, finds, or really anything in the whole wide world. Just remember to keep it kind, calm, respectful, and that's just a theory. Lastly but not least, share this video with your friends and families, every bit helps, so without further ado, let's get right into the video. So after the stream that I was on with T-Dreads and many others, we got to work on 14 Theory, and during this time, we investigated even more 14s and 7s throughout FNAF that led us on a weird journey through past and current FNAF games and books with help from many more FNAF theorists to bring this to you. Then I got a message from Clavis Key detailing an interesting connection between Pigpatch and the Vengeful Spirit that later evolved into a third character entering the connection. Though it's been a lot of fun and so exciting to get this part out. So with the basis out of the way, let's get into our evidence. After I uploaded the first 14 Theory video, a lot, and I mean a lot, of you point out that FNAF came out in 2014, which is pretty cool to point out, but doesn't really mean a lot for a theory, unless you want to say that's technically Golden Freddy's first appearance in the series. Though we have something later on in sub-evidence that will connect Golden Freddy to the year of 2014. Now we get into the uniqueness of Golden Freddy. This was briefly brought up in part 1, as when you split up 1 and 4, you get 5. So if there's 4 MCI and 1 singled out MCI, then well, this has to be Golden Freddy. So we got to investigating to see when Golden Freddy is singled out from the other MCI. FNAF 1 is quite easy to point out. They're the only animatronic that is a secret, and you can't change their AI in the custom night. Next is FNAF 2, and this one was also quite easy for us to find out as well. In FNAF 2's Give Gifts, Give Life minigame, every MCI gets a gift and a mask, except for the Golden Freddy kid in the center. FNAF 3 was also easy, as we found it pretty fast. In Happiest Day, you have the 4 MCI on one end of the table, and Golden Freddy singled out on the other side of the table. Golden Freddy is also the first kid to appear here. So those were the easy ones. Now we get into the later half of the Scott game series. In FNAF 4, however, it seems almost intentional, like to an extreme. In FNAF 4, when Nightmare Fredbear appears, the other nightmares, who are the main 4 representing the MCI, just disappear, singling out the yellow bear yet again. And there's also an instance where in the FNAF 4 minigames, the Fredbear plush is singled out from the other 4 plushies that are sitting in the corner. Now we have Sister Location. Now this one, man, we really struggled here, and there's 2 options, and these are generally the best I could come up with. In Sister Location, if Yendo is meant to be Golden Freddy, he is the only animatronic that doesn't jump scare you in a room in which you can be jump scared in the main game. The other option is that if Yendo isn't meant to be Golden Freddy, he is purely excluded from Sister Location. Pizza Sim was a slight challenge, but let me explain this one. You'd have the MCI and Molten Freddy, Marionette and Lefty, possibly alongside the DCI and everyone else. However, we never actually see Golden Freddy or get really any references to him, except in the office where yet again, he is singled out from the main four in their drawings. Now, I don't have to mention how Golden Freddy is singled out in UCN, as that's kind of the whole point of this video in the previous 14 Theory episode. Now, for a while, there wasn't really anything else to point out. I mean, it seems Golden Freddy's story was over once UCN was over. Or was it? In FNAF Help Wanted 1, Golden Freddy should have appeared in both FNAF 1 and FNAF 2's nights. Now, you could argue for FNAF 2 that the wizards weren't always there, however, they were implemented later, so this still purposely excludes Golden Freddy from Help Wanted 1. Then in Help Wanted 2, another game where the past is brought to the present, to get Golden Freddy's plushie, you need to mix 4 ingredients, then look past the machine where you send the drink, and grab the lonely soda-roni and pour it in, lock the area down, and send it, which gives you the Golden Freddy plush. Now, this is something I noticed in Help Wanted 2 for the hint to get this. You have 3 graves and a soda-roni representing the 4th gravestone, which excludes the 5th grave that should be there, however that might be a stretch. There's also the graves which has Golden Freddy as the 5th one to get the Bonnie mask, but that's also not really singling him out, just showing that Golden Freddy again is number 5. Now, while on the huge stream with FNAF's biggest creators, fellow FNAF theorist Sire Squawks pointed out to us that since you have 7 Toy Chica cutscenes and 6 Bear Vengeance cutscenes, with the final one being Golden Freddy's and Ultimate Custom Night, you could argue that to keep the trend of the 7 cutscenes as a group, Golden Freddy's Void cutscene would be the 7th Bear Vengeance cutscene, which would cement the connection of whoever is the vengeful spirit needing a connection in some way to Golden Freddy. Now we get into the really cool stuff that we have found for our main evidence. Now, after we finished the video, we got to working on finding more 14s throughout the series, and while on call with a few other theorists, it was pointed out that in the survival logbook on page 31, you have the page telling you to reflect on your happiest day. On this page, you have 4 pieces of importance to note. First, Mike crosses out new difficulties for certain death, when to think about his happiest day to help him feel better when facing new difficulties. Next, you have faded text, which is theorized to be Cassidy in this book, asking Cried Child, "Do you remember your name?" Though these 2 things surprisingly aren't the bombshells of this page, but rather the next 2 details. On this page, you have the marionette giving cake to a girl with black hair that has yellow pins in her hair. Now, this is pretty reminiscent of Happiest Day, though that's not even the bombshell either, but rather the tally marks. If you look at the tally marks, you have 5, 4, and 5, and when you add these up, you get 14 tally marks. Now, if you saw Locker Theory, you saw that it did end up making room for Andrew in the 14 victims, if that's what the number 14 is trying to tell us. If this page is telling us that Golden Freddy experienced the happiest day, specifically Cassidy, it gives room for Andrew to exist. Now, there's one thing I have to bring up that will connect the vengeful spirit directly to Old Man Consequences that will be brought up throughout the video. In Ultimate Custom Night, we know that Golden Freddy, when set to 1, has a unique interaction with the Death Coin, in which Fredbear will jump scare you if you attempt to Death Coin Golden Freddy. Whereas one other character like this, and it's Old Man Consequences. When set to 1 and you catch a fish, you get teleported to OMC's world and are told this: "Come and sit with me a while. Leave the demon to his demons. Rest your own soul. There is nothing else." With this connection starting to set up the strongest and most random connection of this video between Golden Freddy, Old Man Consequences, and Pigpatch of all characters. The last piece of evidence I have for you all is actually from Gibby himself. If you count the nights in FNAF, you have 7 in the first game and 7 in the second, making 14 nights. And what's the most difficult mode called in FNAF 2? Golden Freddy mode, making this Golden Freddy mode the 14th night. Pretty ironic, isn't it? Though, I like to pass it over to Sire Squawks, Gibby, and Withered Circle to cover the next 3 sections.
Okay, before I really get into the sub-evidence, remember, a lot of this stuff could just admittedly be coincidences. The whole reason it's not main evidence is because we know it's a bit of a stretch. A lot of these are more just interesting things we find along the way. T-Dreads found that in the security breach sticky note room, one of the post-its has a tally mark number 7 on it, which we're not really sure what to do with other than the fact that it's another time the number 7 appears in the series. But hey, it's there. There's a newer theory floating around called Locker Theory, specifically with the 14 lockers leading up to William's death, which would mean that 14 people died before him, I guess? Admittedly, this is where things kind of get weird. Some people noted that on the 16th locker, there was a sticker of hand unit with exotic butters, which might be a Mike reference, which would mean that he would be the 16th death. But by that logic, that would make this next locker over kind of a maybe happiest day reference, which would imply the bite victim was the 17th death, which can't really be possible for so many reasons that should be obvious. So we're just going to say, hey, maybe there's something to that. Personally, I do think the whole 14 death thing makes a lot of sense. We're just not quite sure if the lockers are specifically where we're supposed to apply it, but it's worth mentioning in case we do find some new information in this topic. And it's worth noting that the full 14th locker and 14th character in Ultimate Custom Night isn't the only time that there's something weird with numbers and characters in the roster. JJ is the 10th character in Ultimate Custom Night and FNAF World's roster. On page 19 of the Survival Logbook, there's a single picture of JJ with the tally mark 10 on it. J is also the 10th letter of the alphabet. So if we had the 10th character of Ultimate Custom Night and the 10th character of FNAF World as JJ, then it would be JJ. That might just be a stupid little joke or pun on the character's name, but it's funny that it happened twice. Though none of the other real mentions of tally marks in the logbook correlate to a character cleanly. I mean, I guess there's the 14 tally marks around the puppet on a page talking about Happiest Day, and Golden Freddy gets the cake at the end of Happiest Day. So there's kind of that correlation maybe. None of the other ones really cleanly correlate to any one character, but of course also in the Survival Logbook on page 95 we have the iconic Foxy grid. Now a weird quirk of this grid is that on the left side we have the numbers counting down the different rows. However, it trails off at 14, which considering that this might contain the name to the bite victim and or at the very least relates to the overall conversation about Golden Freddy, is kind of interesting that it cuts off of there or is meant to be done in the first 14 rows or something. Terminal Error pointed out that in the week before on page 152, Ralph finds a ticket to Fredbear's Family Diner. And that itself isn't really that special, but weirdly enough, despite the fact that Fredbear's Family Diner is so far in the past relative to this point in time and the series as a whole, on the back of that ticket is the phrase 2014 written out. Now, obviously that could reference the year 2014. We even talked about that earlier in the video. So this might have been another attempt to kind of clue us in that something about 14 was special and or the year 2014. Though personally, another interesting thing we could connect to this whole topic is the fact that 20 is the highest difficulty a character can be on in Ultimate Custom Night and in the FNAF games as a whole. So Fredbear being 2014, in other words, the 14th character of Ultimate Custom Night Golden Freddy on 20 difficulty, would be kind of a funny little in-joke, and or it would mean 14 characters on 20 difficulty, or 20 characters on 14 difficulty. That would get us exactly to the 4th cutscene of Ultimate Custom Night, which is the one where Toy Chica specifically talks about how she'll tell Twisted Wolf that his dog got run over to lure him to her place, which is a little bit more interesting than any other cutscene she could have had, because while there's a lot of speculation about how Toy Chica might connect to stuff like William and how he killed and lured the kids, this is the closest she actually gets to a confirmed thing we have to work off of. Obviously, Susie's dog was run over, and that was used to lure her into the back room. Every other thing is a lot more speculative, like being kidnapped outside your house. So it's interesting that 2014 happens to reference this one specific cutscene. It is almost certainly a coincidence, admittedly, but on that overall topic of the 2014 ticket, I don't really know what it is referring to. Maybe could be an in-joke about Fredbear's Family Diner being the original location and FNAF 1 coming out in 2014, but in universe, Fredbear's has nothing to do with that year. Even Spring Bonnie being uncovered and put into Fazbear's Fright happens in at earliest 2015 or potentially even later, so the year seems really weird to call out in the context of that story. But of course, it's all much more stretchy and loose. For now, I'm going to pass it over to Gibby for speculation.
Hello, this is Gibby, and there isn't much to go for with the speculation for today, but there are some cool things to point out, for fun. So with the whole theme of tally marks in this theory, we decided to look at the chalkboard in the Survival Logbook. It has 5 plus 4 on the top, and then 3 in the bottom right corner. You can look at these numbers in 3 different ways depending on how we want to order them. If we just put the numbers next to each other, 5 plus 4 times 3, and then follow PEMDAS, we'd get 4 times 3 because you multiply first, to get 12, and then add 5 to get 17. 17 on the UCN roster is Phantom Freddy. There's another way that we could view this. Since the 3 is so far away, maybe it wants us to add the first grouping first, 5 plus 4, to get 9, and then multiply that by 3. Which of course gets us 27. 27 is Old Man Consequences on the UCN roster. And the third way of looking at this is to just think that maybe the space between 4 and 3 is just there to be a little silly. We just kind of squish those together. and they just mean 43. So we get 5 plus 43, which is 48, which is Scrap Trap. Maybe the number 43 is broken across the board because Scrap Trap is broken. All of these characters, Phantom Freddy, Old Man Consequences, Scrap Trap, are important to UCN in their own ways. So if it is meant to mean any of those characters, and I mean, look, it's a chalkboard, it's in a classroom, obviously it's supposed to correlate with the lockers in Toy Chica's high school years, it's a school, these two scenes are obviously meant to connect, so if it is important, we still don't know which of these three characters the chalkboard might be pointing to. That's up for you to decide, because we are out of ideas now after 2 videos. The last thing we have for you today, class, is actually from Sister Location. In the breaker room map that depicts the FNAF 4 neighborhood and houses, we counted the dots that correspond to the FNAF 4's map, and it actually adds up to 14. So maybe this is evidence that Cassidy or Andrew were experimented on in the Sister Location experimentation chambers. Maybe Fredbear's the 14th animatronic, the way that the 14th locker is Golden Freddy. Cryonide pointed out that on the FNAF World menu screen, there's 14 characters, and the 14th character is the Crying Child, who many suspect to be in Golden Freddy. And that's why 14 Theory is the best FNAF meme of 2025 so far.
Pigpatch is quite an interesting character almost every time he appears. With his strange voice lines in UCN, him being in Help Wanted 2 and other appearances, he's always stood out from the rest of the mediocre melodies. But what's his connection to Golden Freddy? Well, let's get right into it and find out. First off, Pigpatch is singled out in Help Wanted 2 as he is the only mediocre melody in this game, and Golden Freddy is an animatronic who is singled out a lot from his cast, meaning Pigpatch could be a parallel to him, but this isn't anything to go off of yet. Though there is a connection to the Vengeful Spirit I want to bring up before we start getting into the juicy bits. It's that Pigpatch, alongside other mediocre melodies, has a battery pack. Now, if you read the Fazbear Frights books, you know exactly where I'm going with this. In the Fright stories, a kid named Andrew possesses a battery pack from the Fetch animatronic. But how would this even show us that Pigpatch has a connection to the Vengeful Spirit when the rest of the mediocre melodies also have battery packs? Well, this is where we get into the numbers 7 and 14 and how they are important to Pigpatch. Fellow FNAF theorist Klaviski pointed out that in Toy Chica the high school years, Pigpatch is the 7th character to fall victim to Toy Chica. This character is thought to be representative of the death of the Vengeful Spirit, whether it be Andrew or Cassidy or whoever. This is quite interesting, and I've made a video on the subject before. And then Clavis brought up that in the post that Scott made when he was programming the Ultimate Custom Night characters in, the 14th character in the roster was Pigpatch, which again is interesting, almost as if that was intentional, meaning this could be another connection between Golden Freddy and Pigpatch. After this information was found, we decided to look into Pigpatch's voice lines and found some interesting lines from him specifically. Now, outside of him always talking about killing you or making fun of your death, he has 2 voice lines that stick out. This first one is a scrapped one, however we know it existed due to Pigpatch's voice actor leaking it in a live stream. Let's have a listen.
Have you begun to realize where you are yet? And who I am? Or are you still so delirious and confused that you think you're a night guard? You'll understand. And even if you don't, it doesn't matter to me either way.
Now, this is quite interesting. Why, out of all of the mediocre melodies, would it be Pigpatch who says this? But that's not even the most important thing he says. Specifically the voice line where he says this.
If you sit by the river long enough, you will see the body of your enemy float by.
This ties back to the connection between Golden Freddy and Old Man Consequences that was mentioned earlier. But what could this mean? Well, it would mean that the Red Freddy that we see in both FNAF World and UCN is the Vengeful Spirit, with the Vengeful Spirit in FNAF World waiting for a while and seeing the body of their enemy float by, that enemy being William and latching onto him. Now, this could just be the Vengeful Spirit talking through Pigpatch like they do with the other mediocre melodies, however, it's interesting that Pigpatch seems to be the only mediocre to be singled out as being special.
So there are a few issues with our evidence, though remember, I'll not be covering the speculation part of our evidence, as I think it's obvious enough that there's issues with those. Now the first issue, I'm just going to group multiple things into one, and it's anything involving the survival logbook. We know that this book came out before UCN by a few months. Now this could have been to set up some things for later, kind of how Scott would usually use the next game to clarify things from previous entries. There's no way for us to know if any of these survival logbook connections we built here today were intentional or not. However, they are quite interesting nonetheless. Now, Golden Freddy's cutscene being the 7th Bear of Vengeance cutscene makes a lot of sense, considering it is weird we never really do get a conclusion to the Bear of Vengeance cutscenes like we do with the Toy Chica, the high school years cutscenes. though whether or not it's intended for Golden Freddy to be this 7th Bear Vengeance cutscene is the biggest issue, as it could be or could not be, as there's no flat out evidence to connect these two cutscenes other than the fact that Golden Freddy is a bear, is very obviously in control of UCN, and vengeful towards William. Then there's the singling out. Now, whether or not this was intentional in the making of these games, probably not. But later on, it might have been, as we know Scott does retroactive storytelling, though Sister Location and Pizza Sim are the ones that have the biggest issues. Though every time the original timeline of Scott games appears, there's something with Golden Freddy either appearing but being singled out, or not appearing despite everyone else appearing. We never see Golden Freddy in any games that revolve around this future Steel Wool games like Security Breach or Ruin, unless you want to count the plushie you can get that is Golden Glamrock Freddy. Now, Pigpatch is interesting, as everything could just be even more proof that the vengeful spirit is controlling the mediocre melodies in UCN. However, it is quite interesting how Pigpatch seems to be singled out quite a lot out of the mediocre melodies in this sense. You do also have an issue with the scrapped voice line as well. It was scrapped in the 14th character being programmed, as it definitely could have been coincidence. Otherwise, I feel everything is solid. It's more so a question of, was this intentional? And unfortunately, I don't think we'll get that answer unless Scott answers it either on Reddit or in a future game. This was so much fun to work on, and thank you to everyone behind the scenes and in this video that helped out with finding the things that were brought up in this video. All of their channels will be linked in the description down below, and Gibby's videos covering 14 Theory will also be in the description. I feel it does help to give more credence to 14 Theory, though the biggest issue is, again, finding whether it's intentional or not. I feel that's the only thing holding this theory back. Though you already know my ranking of 14 Theory being a 10 out of 10 in my books, but for this episode specifically, I'm actually going to give it an 8 out of 10. The reason for it is because a lot of the evidence either came out before UCN was out, so it's unknown if Scott planned this out in previous entries, or it's hard to find a pattern in every game that follows Golden Freddy being singled out, though it is quite interesting. Please tell me any finds you discover around this theory. You can message me through my email or Discord, which are in the description down below, or you can just comment it. Otherwise, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Just remember to keep it kind, calm, respectful, and that's just a theory.
My final thoughts on 14 Theory, for now, is that finding small things in FNAF is often just as important as solving the lore. I always advocate that we don't remove evidence from context, and I think that the lore revelation of a piece of evidence is usually proportional to the evidence itself, so a 14 on a locker in a cutscene isn't going to solve everything. But this video isn't claiming to solve everything. It started by just noticing that 14 is associated with Golden Freddy, and if that's intentional, then what else is intentional about 14? And whatever conclusion anyone draws from that, well, it only happened because someone noticed the slanted 14. I love 14 Theory because I used to be an English teacher, and noticing the relationship between two things, like the number 14 and Golden Freddy, in a text, and then scouring the text for repetitions of one of those things to see if you can find and replace it with the other thing, is exactly how you should analyze literature. I talk about this in my own video about the Fazbear Fright story Count the Ways, about how coldness in that story is the same as the concept of death. If you find and replace cold with dead, it creates a new layer of meaning. And if you find and replace 14 with Golden Freddy across the FNAF franchise, it creates a new layer of meaning. Narrow Raven is out here doing the real work, teaching people how to theory craft, scouring these games in new and novel ways to find hints. I don't think that 14 proves Cassidy is the vengeful spirit, but it proves that the FNAF theorist community on YouTube is the strongest when we all unite our brain cells together and learn how to count to double digits. With our powers combined, we can reach 14. Subscribe to Narrow Raven.
All right, so I want to thank everyone real quick. I'm just going to kind of like put this into like 3 sections because like there's so many people. So to all the people who watched 14 Theory's original episode, watched Locker Theory, and commented and helped me figure out more stuff, thank you all so much. It means the world to me. This is like the first time I've had a theory like this actually kind of blow up like this, and it's so cool to see everyone's thoughts on it and to see people talk about it. It's really cool, and thank you all to everyone who have just been having so much fun with it. Thank you to the people who've been making memes about it. Just thank you so much. It means the world to me. Thank you. The people behind the scenes who helped, so like the YouTubers, stuff like that, thank you all so much. It was a joy to talk with all of you, work with all of you, hear your wild thoughts and suggestions, and just everything. It was an absolute joy, and I hope to work with all of you like in a video where you're not just like brought up like that you helped, but like we're actually working together. I hope we could do that soon. Sorry that I couldn't get you in this video, but there was just not enough room. But thank you all so much for the help on that. Now I also want to thank everyone that was in the video. So that would be Gibby, Snyder Squawks, and Withered Circle. Thank the three of you so much. It was a lot of fun. Y'all were really quick to get the work done, and it was an absolute joy to work with all of you. Dream come true for me. Thank you all so much. It was so much fun and just an absolute joy, seriously. And to everyone who also covered 14 Theory, whether it be making their own spin-off theory on it, whether they're covering it, giving their thoughts, making memes, anything like that, thank you so much. It means the world to me, and it's so cool. Seriously, thank you so much. So now that we have all the thanks out of the way, which, yeah, sorry if it seemed a little not so genuine. There was a lot of people I had to get through there, but yeah, I want to clarify something with 14 Theory. Who's the vengeful spirit? I am going to give you an answer. I don't know. So the reason why I'm saying I don't know is because with this theory, it's really, what do you think works with this theory? There's a lot of avenues you can go down, because like, if you think the survival logbook matters to this theory, then I'd say it's Andrew. Because it's pretty much saying, okay, well, it looks like Cassie's being the happiest day receiver on that page. But if not, then it kind of leaves it a little more open to where, well, Cassidy didn't receive happiest day, so then they're still around. So it's a weird thing where it's, what do you think? And I'm not really someone to tell you what to think. So let me know what you think on who the vengeful spirit is and why. I'd love to hear your opinions, and I'd love to talk to you about it in the comments down below. So yeah, that's my genuine thoughts on it. I don't know who the vengeful spirit is fully, just that whoever it is needs a connection to Golden Freddy in order for them to be the vengeful spirit. Whether it be that they are in Golden Freddy, whether they have some form of like history with Golden Freddy, or a reason to represent themselves as Golden Freddy in this like weird mindscape of Williams. One other thing I want to quickly do is announce my new upcoming podcast. So I have a podcast I've been working on for a very long time called the Xander Zone Podcast, and I'm finally getting ready to release it, and I'm so excited for it. So currently at the moment, I do have a couple episodes planned out. The podcast is going to be just talking to other FNAF content creators currently. Just trying to get to know them a little more, ask them questions about their favorite theories, some behind the scenes, maybe a little bit about them growing up and stuff like that. Just all the kind of stuff to kind of maybe get to know your favorite FNAF content creator a little bit better. So I hope you all are excited for that. It's not coming till summer, but I thought I'd announce it to kind of let people know that, hey, it's coming, expect it. I will let you know more as we get closer to the release date of the podcast. Otherwise, that's pretty much all that I have, genuinely. So, yeah, as always, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please do hit that like, subscribe button, as we have a goal of 3,000 subs by the end of the month. While you're at it, comment down below really anything in the whole wide world. Just remember to keep it kind, calm, respectful, and that's just a theory. Share this video with your friends and families. Every single bit helps. So without further ado, I hope you all enjoyed. Have a great day, stay safe, and peace out.